give me your name and spell it for me?
My name is Lenke Kohn, K-O-H-N. L-E-N-K-E is my first name. And I know by my friends as Bobbie, as my nickname, B-O-B-B-I-E.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was born in Bonyhard, Hungary in 1923, July the 12th.
How do you spell Bonyhard?
B-O-N-Y-H-A-D.
What part of Hungary was this in?
Is that louder?
What part of Hungary was Bonyhard? Where was that located?
It's close to the Yugoslav border.
Okay. What is your age today?
74.
Okay. What were your parents' names?
You have to talk a little bit louder to me.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Give me your mother and father's name.
My mother's name was Regina, maiden name Klein, K-L-E-I-N. She passed away when I was born. My father's name is Gyula, it's a real Hungarian name, J-U-J-Y-U-L-A-P-O-L-L-A-C-K.
And where was his family from?
My mother was born in Czechoslovakia. My father was born in Hungary, but from Austrian background.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 3 sisters and 1 brother. My 3 sisters survived with Irish papers in Budapest. My brother died in Mauthausen in February 1944. 45.
What were your sisters' names?
My older sister was Theodora. She passed away 2 years ago in New York. My sister Margaret, she lives in New York. My sister Sabina lives in Jerusalem with her husband.
Okay.
My brother died.
And what was his name?
Mopolak, Moore, M-O-O-R-E. He's known by his Hebrew name, Moshe Chaim.
Okay. Tell me about your childhood.
Was born into a very religious Orthodox family, above average. I was the youngest in the family.
What was your house like? Describe it to me.
Our house was one of the more modern houses on the street. It was built in 1929, already with electricity and running water. We didn't have to bring the water from the well. With bathrooms, with showers. We went to a kindergarten first for a few years, and then to an Orthodox public school. In Hungary, every city had, every religion had their own schools. Catholics, Protestants, Lutherans, everybody. They had 2 Jewish schools. One was the Orthodox, where I attended, and there was the Reform, for Reformed Jewish children. And the first 1, 2 through 3rd grade was one teacher, and 4, 5, 6 was a second teacher who taught us. The girls were learning all in the morning. It was regular education. In the afternoon, when the boys went to Cheder, we had education for girls, needlepoint, crocheting, knitting, learning about how to keep a house. It was fun. After the 6th grade, I had to attend private high school by a teacher. And for exams, we had to go in a different city. It's called Sexad.
How do you spell that?
Sekzad, R-D, Sexad.
Why did you have to go there?
Because for the exams, there was only a Catholic school, a high school in town, where we couldn't go because nuns were teaching. And they wouldn't allow, Jewish girls wouldn't go in.
Were all of your friends Jewish? Or
Not
did you
really. I had friends, I had friends, neighbors' children, who I was very close. They were Catholics. They came to my house, I went to their house, but not eating or, holidays, we wouldn't allow to go. When they had Christmas, we wouldn't allow to go to their homes to visit, whatever. It was different like it's today here.
What was a normal day for you? Describe from the time you get up in the morning, what would you do?
We walked to school. We had to leave the house about 7:30. School started at 8. 12 o'clock, we had off till 2. We had to go home for lunch. 2 o'clock, we had to be back in school till 4 o'clock. And after that, everybody was on their own. We did whatever we wanted. Homework at home, help at home. I had a job. I had to go to the farmers every day to get the milk. We had to carry our own kosher dishes, what that milk the milk in. And if you want to know, the milk from the cow, while it was warm, the most delicious thing. It didn't have to be homogenized.
And then you brought that home to your mother? You brought the milk home?
The milk home. And they set it up, they put it up, they boiled the milk. And some of it they set to get sour milk out of it. And they take the smetana up on the top and they brought it together, they saved it day by day. And by end of the week, they make our butter. We put it in a dish and walked around shaking it back and forth till it came butter. And for the set milk, we put it up on the stove and we made our cottage cheese. And when it started to curl, we put it in a cheesecloth, in a sack. We hang that on a doorknob with a bucket underneath till all the water ran out. It was a different life than today. But it was fun, clean.
Did you have help in the house?
We had a maid who stayed with us.
What was
She got up in the morning, her name was Kathy. She got up in the morning. When we got up, the fire was already, in the winter time, the fire was already going, and the coffee was already made, and the milk was hot, ready for the kids to have breakfast and go to school.
And what did your father do?
My father went in the morning to synagogue, came home, he had breakfast, and then went down to the office and took care of business. We had a export and import business from fruits and vegetables all over Europe, mostly in the colder countries where they didn't grow any grapes and didn't grow any prunes and plums and apricots and all that. And in the winter time it was vegetables, potatoes, cabbage, carrots, whatever, rutabaga, whatever it was available. And beside that, I jump a little bit with the time. In 1939, they took the business away from us. We had to hire a strawman who took care of the business. He was a partner. Actually, he was head of the business. And in 1940, we acquired factories in Debrecen. It's Debrencen. And we made dried vegetables and plum preserves. And then we asked my father a few times, why don't you bring some home to taste? He said, that's not to eat, that's to sell.
He was a very smart man.
Yeah.
Did he bring home newspapers at home? Did you discuss politics at home?
Not really. There was newspaper, but the Jewish girls, Orthodox girls, that didn't have to be educated in. You know, they were raised to keep a house. When they get married, should be a good wife.
And so your mother was a housewife. She stayed at home. Was this typical of your community? Was this typical? Most of your friends lived this way?
And they go back now. When I was a year old, my father remarried. And she was the most wonderful person. I don't think so that I ever been as a good mother to my children than she was to us.
And what was her name?
Her name was Frances. And her father was a scribe who wrote Torahs and also was very, very religious. And from my mother's side, my uncles, there was in Berlin Wolf Klein. He was the chief rabbi in 1936. And then another brother of my mother was a rabbi in Czechoslovakia, where originally my grandparents came from. It was Sallo, S-A-L-L-O. In Hungarian, I don't know how we'd call it, in Czechoslovakian name, whatever. And from my mother's side, there were 5 brothers. 3 of them were rabbis, 2 of them were big businessmen in Budapest. And I don't know how many aunts and how many aunts but sisters my mother had.
What about grandparents? Did you have grandparents?
I remember my real mother's mother. She was in Budapest in a sanatorium. And when we went in the summertime, when I visit my stepmother's mother, we stopped there and we visit them. And we came in, it was a very cold lady, like the whole family from my real mother's side. He said, now I saw you, you can go.
So you visited your stepmother's mother.
It was different.
Tell me about it.
She lived on the Danube, and it was real vacation, 6 weeks in the summertime, in the winter. Her door was always open, loving, like I am a grandmother now to my children, to my grandchildren.
How did you spend your summers?
I spent at her house. We get up in the morning, I helped her to clean the house, went with her to the market, helped her buy some things, prepare. And went down, we'd take friends down to the Danube, and you couldn't see me all day long. And when I got meet somebody, there were 2 or 3 weeks, he wouldn't let me help to make the dough for the challah or for the cake for Shabbos. My hand was so brown. He said, it's ugly, don't touch anything.
Tell me about your Shabbats.
It was dressed up special. Friday afternoon, you showered, you put on your Sunday's best. It was Friday night that my father went to shul, brought home strangers who traveled through the city for dinner, and we were to stay sometimes in our house. Saturday morning, my father went to shul, came home, made kiddush, had breakfast, went back for second services, and then the maid went to the bakery and brought the cholent home. That's a traditional Shabbos meal. And in the afternoon we lay down, we rested, went out with my friends on a walk, and then meet the boys on the street. We just looked at them, we weren't allowed to talk to them.
Did you have special places that you sat at your dinner table?
What?
Did you have any special place, like did your father sit in a special place?
Yes. My father sit by the head of the table, and we wouldn't dare sit on his chair. And I try to taught my children the same way. They don't sit in my husband's seat. He has his special seat at the table. And the grandchildren know the same thing.
Were there special foods that you liked to prepare or have?
Today?
Back then?
I have a thing on my kitchen wall. It says that the best food served here every day. I don't have my family, so I'm very fortunate. Anything I put down for my husband, he doesn't care. I like to make Hungarian pastries. It calls polgár tészta. That was like, the polgár means like citizen, the citizen's pastry. And it's a delicious cookie dough, and it's rolled out very thin and filled, spread with jelly, apricot jelly, and then nuts and sugar, and topped with some cherries, or the pie cherries what we have, and we make a meringue and cover that with meringue, and we bake it up and slice it in small squares. It's very, very good.
What were some of the things that you did with your friends in the evening? Where would you go?
In the evening, while I was younger, we couldn't go any place. On the weekends, Sunday, we used to go to the movies. Or when they came over to our house, we had a ping pong table. So we played ping pong. Then we used the exercise things. We had a bar, we had rings in the hallway, but they didn't have. And about 8, 9 o'clock, everybody had to be home. The next day was school. And it was a funny episode. We were already grown-ups, and it started to rain, and a bunch of young guys come running into the house. And we started to play ping pong, and some of them were cousins, some of them some friends. And it went by a week or so, and they came back, and we started to play again. And my father said, "It doesn't rain outside."
So, were you more well off than the other people who lived around you, or was it similar?
My family was better off, because we would take more trips, more vacations. I was away 4 weeks once in Switzerland just to learn how to sit, how to eat. But they didn't do. And there were my friends, my best friend's father was a school teacher. My other girlfriend's father was a Melamed, is a teacher in the Hebrew school for the boys. And then they had, some of them had some little grocery stores or worked for somebody else.
Did you ever see or hear about anti-Semitism in your community?
Not till 1936. When Hitler took over. But till 1939 it didn't affect us at all. Our business went normal. And in 1939, when they took the business away, everything changed.
Tell me about how it changed.
They didn't bought by us. We had, like I mentioned it earlier, that we had to hire a straw man who handled it. And in Switzerland, we had an agent who handled the money from Europe. But probably still there, a lot of it. But he couldn't collect. And then when in 1942, we came home one evening from a movie with a cousin of mine. And naturally the windows were all black, all closed up. And doors, everything closed. And my father was listening to BBC from London. And they were reporting that Polish Jews get burned in concentration camps and the ashes get sifted for the gold in their mouth. And my father, how can you go to see a movie when all that's going on? But you know, so long it didn't touch you, it was hard to believe.
And how old were you at that point? You were how old?
How old in 1942? I was born in 1923.
Okay, so you were 19.
So I was growing up already, you know, and just was hard to believe. And then when the Anschluss came, then a lot of, from Austria, the people started to run into Hungary. And then from Romania, people came. We were sitting like ducks waiting to be shot. You wouldn't believe it. The war was going on. They were already, the English and the Americans were down by the boot in Italy. And that is just a jump. But they never got through.
Did you talk about leaving?
To leaving, no. Because just, you know, we were believing that it's so close, they are so close. You know, Yugoslavia is big as Israel. Italy, from the boots through, when you go from Hungary, you fly to Italy, it takes about 45 minutes. So how long would it take for them, you know, to come through? But they were cut in the mountains, and they never succeeded.
Did you and your friends belong to any organizations?
Just to Jewish organization. It was the B'nai B'nat. That was the Jewish organization for girls. And we had meetings, we got together. We had outings together. And it was one, I don't remember the year, it was a jamboree from all over. And before Hitler's time. There were all the, you know, like the Brownies and the Boy Scouts. They all came in.
Was there talk? I'm sorry. Was there talk amongst your friends, the girls, of going to Israel, of leaving?
No. The real Orthodox don't believe in that. You know, they're waiting till Messiah should come. And that's what we really believed in.
Did your town have Jewish courts or Jewish police stations or?
No.
No. Okay. So everything that you heard about Hitler was through the radio?
Through the BBC. By closed doors, dark rooms. And then it came to the time when they took the radios away. We had to give them down. When they took over, when Hitler came in, they took the radios away from us. And it was Purim 1944. I was visiting in Budapest with my sisters. And I just decided Purim was in Hungary a holiday. The families got together, and the president from the Jewish community had an open house with sweets and drinks. And I just decided to take and we gave presents, Purim, for the family members. and we carried sweets to the relatives. So I decided to go home and take the present home for my parents. And when I left Budapest, it was, the railroad station was open, nobody knew anything was happening. And by noontime, Hungary was taken over by the Germans. So I didn't get home till late night. The holiday was over. But I got home, and I never left my parents.
Where was your brother at this time?
My brother at that time was in a forced labor camp. And my father tried to get him out. And he succeeded, he bought him out. And it was right after that.
Who did he pay to buy him out? Do you know?
He paid for some doctors and for a military man. You know, for money you could do everything. And they put him in a hospital, and that he has kidney problems and that he urinates with blood. It was done through medication. And they released him and he came home. And he was with us till we were evacuated, till we got into Auschwitz.
So you came home from Budapest, your
Yes.
sisters, there were two sisters?
Three, all
three were in Budapest.
My older sister was married, he had already a little boy. My second sister was engaged. And the youngest one, she was going to school for designing and master's degree to make the patterns for them. She made her own designs, her own patterns, and she had her master's degree.
Okay, we'll stop here.
She was the only one who was educated.
Okay, we'll stop and pick up. About the day you came back from Budapest on Purim.
After that, when I got home, it was already, we couldn't walk on the sidewalk. And 5 o'clock, we couldn't be out on the streets anymore, or the doors had to be locked. The business, it was already, my father couldn't attend it at all, anything. Everything was through the Strom, and everything was attended through him. And my cousins, my uncle's sons, they were all called in for forced labor camp. And we girls, we were just sitting at home doing nothing. We couldn't help anything with Papa, no business or anything. And in April, we had to leave our house. We didn't know exactly when to get into the ghetto. And one morning, my father was saying morning prayers. He had his tefillin on and his talis, and then they came to get out. So and by the doorstep, our house was built half-story high, and by the steps there was a priest with the holy smoke, and our next door neighbor who planned to move into our house. And my father leaned over the mezuzah, and I saw him the first time and the last time in my life crying. And we went into a ghetto. It's one part of the city around the synagogue was sealed off, and we stayed with other two families. And a few days while we were in there, they were asking people to come out volunteer to do work. some of my friends and I, we went out to clean the officers' homes, the nicest Jewish homes that were occupied by them. And after that, we did some damage in some of the homes, so it didn't took us out anymore. So we volunteered, 7 of us. We went out on a farm to do farm work. First of all, to save the food what my parents got, they didn't have to share with us. And we had a chance to bring in some food, to send in some food to the ghetto. And we were there till the day we had to come back, leave the ghetto. And we were all gathered up on the sport field overnight.
Let's talk a little bit more about the ghetto. Who rounded you up? Was it with the priest and the neighbor was there? But who were the guards there?
What?
In when they first came to your home, were there guards? Was it the Hungarians?
SS came to the house.
It was the SS
to leave the house.
Okay.
And my father was asked he could be hide out by, they had hot houses is right across the street, the neighbors where we lived right across from us. And they were willing to hide my mother, my father, my brother, me, my grandmother's mother, and a Jewish girl who stayed with us, who escaped from Romania earlier in the years. And my father said, if you can save my brother-in-law and his family, and my sister and her family, I am coming, otherwise I'm not. And while we were out on the sports field at night, that woman risked her life and came to try to persuade my father to go with her.
What was her name?
What was her name? I don't remember. But they took care of the hot houses and the flowers for those people. We could all be saved. Pictures and clothing, certain things, what we gave for them to save for us, they gave back for my sisters after when they came back.
So they kept some of your belongings?
Yeah.
So you took, when you left your home to move to the ghetto, what did you take with you?
Just what we could carry. Suitcases, that's all. All the other belongings like silver and the better linens and things, crystals, china. It's my brother and I buried it. We had our house, but like I told you, it was half-story high. And downstairs it was a summer kitchen and a room next to it for storage, and it was tiles floor. So brother and I, we digged out a hole and we put in with wood, laid it out with wood, and we buried there everything, and we put the tiles back on there where nobody would notice it. And certain things, we had a wash house. They had where they boiled it, in Europe, they washed the clothes and they boiled it in a big kettle. And underneath we buried certain things under that. And after, when I was liberated in Germany, through the Red Cross, I let them know, I said, please do me a favor, when I come home, you have to rebuild in the wash house the castle because it's falling apart. And the tiles in the storage room downstairs need repair. So they understood what I meant.
And did you hear if they...
When I went home in 1946, they were so that everything was at my Mindy's house, my Margaret's house. He married and he lived in his husband's family's home. And I couldn't believe that I can live there. When I came home, Sabina lived in our house, at my parents' house. I walked up on one side of the staircase and there's another one on the other side. I said, how can you live in here? With all the furniture almost, I tried to get back certain things. And they asked me, how long you going to stay? It was in 1946 when I went home the first time. I said, I'm going to be on the first train what takes me back. And please pack your suitcases and come with me. They wouldn't listen. And when the Hungarian Revolution was in 1957, they barely escaped with their skin.
When you were taken into the ghetto,
yeah,
what were the boundaries? What did they build to keep you in?
It was a small street, a narrow street, almost like an alley here, where the synagogue was, and the bathhouse for the Orthodox people, Orthodox women to use, and the schoolhouse. And that was the boundary. There were about 5 or 6 houses. And the other ghetto was on the other side of the city by the Reform synagogue.
And were there fences put up or barbed wire?
No, it was fences put up, yeah. And guard. There was a SS guard around, the German, the Hungarian police. What was worse than the SS those days.
And were you able to observe Sabbath?
Between the 4 walls, yes.
Okay. And you had...
there was no services in the synagogues.
Okay.
And we were in the ghetto not for a long time.
Okay.
Few months. And in August, before the ghetto was evacuated, they brought in Jewish people who were mentally ill, and they were out by farmers out from the city. And they should be recognized. They shaved the women's hair and the men's also. And when we got into Auschwitz, my uncle looked out by the window and he said, oh my God, look how many crazy people. And it didn't took long, maybe a half an hour between all those crazy people with shaved heads.
While you were in the ghetto, did you hear what was happening? Did you talk about the future? Did your mother and father talk to you about what was to happen?
We didn't know. We didn't know where we're going.
Did your father?
I go back for Passover. They were still in the house at home. I woke up in the morning and I heard a baby cry. And went outside, it was a letter there. That's my uncle's daughter from the Czechoslovakian border. They were taken away, and that is their child, and we should try to save them. So the baby was in our house maybe 4 weeks without the baby's grandfather. We lived in the same house, same backyard, same yard. My uncle lived, we lived, and my aunt, my father's 2 sisters. And it took 4 weeks till they finally find out that the baby is with us. And when we got into Auschwitz, my cousin held that baby and gave her the baby. I was already with my mother on the right side to be saved. She ran after and said, Aunt Fege, would you please hold the baby? I want to run back for diapers. And as soon as they saw the baby in my mother's hand, they took her to the left side.
Right. Tell me about your evacuation from the ghetto. Did you know?
It could take so much.
Did they tell you when you would be leaving? Did you
No, they just took us out on the sports field, and when the cattle wagons came next morning.
So did you have an opportunity to speak with your parents about what would happen?
Nobody said anything.
So
Nobody said anything.
how
Everybody was saying Tillam. That's a special prayer.
in the car, in the train, how long of a ride did you have?
About 2 days.
And no one said anything
2, 3
except the
days.
prayer?
I don't remember exactly. Time it was.
Did you have any food or water?
Food, yeah. But we took along with us from home.
Did you know where you were going?
Worried?
Where?
Nobody was thinking. Everybody was believing in God.
What did you see when they opened the car doors?
The SS, they were yelling, we should get out from the cattle wagons. We had to leave everything behind. And fast, fast, hurry, hurry. And they marched in, there were guys. I have to take all our clothes off. They shaved us all over, any place where hair grows. And then they took us in a shower, and they gave us some raggedy clothes. I didn't know where to hold with my hand, hold it together here or hold it here with the holes on it, barefoot. They gave us, some people were lucky, they got some wooden shoes. And the first night we spent in a ditch. And the second day we went into a block. There was no breeches or anything to lay down, just in the floor. They made us sit on 10 in a row, and they gave us in a pot some hot water with something swimming in it, and everybody took a few sips and gave it to the next one. And then they gave us a piece of bread. And then the third day I got into a block 21. There was already preachers. There was 5 of them laying this way, 5 on the other way, on the top of us and above. In the morning, but it was still dark outside, they called us out to count us how many of us there. The sun came out, burning down on us, and they let us go back in the blocks. And if you lay there, you couldn't move, you didn't do anything. Then they gave you a little coffee, they gave you a slice of bread. And that was the whole day. And when you had to go to the bathroom, you had to go when they allowed you to go. And the saddest part of my staying there, it was the eldest of the block, or the block eldest, was a first cousin of mine. And she made nothing out of it. Said she wouldn't help, wouldn't give no sympathy or anything, but she was there already. She was a mattress for the soldiers on the front for a couple of years. She was from Czechoslovakia. And one day, her mother's sister came into the camp, and they put them in the block 21 with 3 of her daughters. And she said, if my mother is not here, and my little sister is not here, you don't have to be here either. And sent her out. Never saw her again.
And when
it came to leave the camp, they were every day. One morning it was, the barracks were all locked, we couldn't go out. We heard trucks going, children crying. It was right next to Camp C. There was a family camp from Czechoslovakia, women and children. And when we came out in the morning, it was smoke so low, and the smell was unbearable. You could see how the crematoriums are burning. And every day after that, it was selections. They were taking women with long fingers, with blue eyes, and somehow I had a fat hand, I had brown eyes, I was a brunette, not like it would show too much because I was shaved.
Well, when you first got off the car and you realized you were in Auschwitz, you were with, tell me who you were with.
That time we know where we are.
You were with your mother and your father, your stepmother and your father?
I just saw him when we got off from the...
Right, tell me about that.
That was the last time when I saw him.
And they sent your father to...
My father and my brother went left. My brother was sent out to a labor camp, and my father went the same day.
The same day. And how long were you with your mother, your stepmother?
But in Auschwitz, till we left August. When we were in Auschwitz, I was 6 weeks altogether.
You got to Auschwitz in October of 44?
No.
August of 44. August of 44, and you left
yeah.
in October.
But we were there about 6 weeks.
And when was the last time you saw your stepmother and the baby?
When we got off the train,
first day?
that was it.
Okay, tell me that. Tell me about that.
And that was the end of it. And we were in the camp. Some of even my closest friends, they tried to give away the piece of bread for a toothbrush, for a spoon. And I said, don't you dare do it. You have to eat it. And prominent women from our town, 3 days after when I met them, you couldn't recognize them anymore. They let themselves down completely. And the 5 girls who I was with, they can say that they saved their life through me. And when there were the selections that tried to empty Auschwitz out, it was already going. And one morning we were standing out for the Zählappell when they were counting us. A young SS soldier walked by and looked at me. I recognized him. It was one of our neighbor's son. We knew that he went to Germany, but we didn't know he joined the SS. And then he walked back of me and he asked me very quietly, who else is here? And stay together. And when it's going to be time to leave the camp, I'm going to come and let you know. And it was a big selection. And he came, we ran back a few times, we were pushed out into the group, and when we ran away, we went back to the barracks. And then he came, he pulled us, 5 of us out, and pulled one line out from the marching group and put us in there. And we were taken over to D camp, that's where the crematorium were. And it's a very sad thing. There were 2 sisters separated. One sister was in the C lager, one was in D. And another 2 sisters were separated the same way. They know from each other. And they were selected for Totenkommando. They did the dead people from C lager over to D. And they decided that this time they're going to switch. And they had to come back to C lager. After they dropped off the bodies, they had to go back. And somebody snitched on them. So we were standing, they took us out, all of us, 400 of us. And they took us around a big ditch and tell us who were the 2 sisters. Step out. Tell who are the 2 girls. Nobody said anything. Ilse Koch, you heard about her. She was one of the main SS women. Standing there with a whip, they were shooting bullets in the air to scare us. And she just went and she used her whip. She hit me on my shoulder and on my neck and there is a scar. and hit through the clothes, the raggedy clothes. It split the skin, and the whip went back to her white shirt. It made a blood mark, and she ripped the shirt off, Juden blue. She was standing there strapless in front of everybody. And he said, we're gonna die here. And they put us all in one block, and we were there 3 days. And they finally gave us showers, clean clothes, shoes, socks, coats, and they shipped us off to a labor camp to Germany. And we were working under the Luftwaffe. So our condition was better than under SS.
What was the name of the SS?
What?
What was the name of the SS boy that helped you? Do you remember his name?
One SS woman, one of them name was Maria. And the other one was, because the one was a little Maria, like me, and the other one was a big Maria. She was a tall. There were 4 SS women with us.
And what about the man who,
the men were
who put you in the selection?
They all were like cripples. They were the old soldiers from World War I, from the Luftwaffe. They just walked with us, watched us with the rifle on the shoulders, but they wouldn't do anything bad.
And this was in where you were transported?
That was in Wismar. Not Wismar, that was in, what was the camp's name? It's going to come back to me. Wesemünde. It was about 20 kilometers from Bremenhaven. And it was munition factories under the ground, a beautiful pine forest on the top. And there was 4 sections. The one what I worked with 100 women, it called the Füllungsstelle. That was the 15-pound bombs. We filled it. I was working with hot phosphate, dressed from head to toe, gloves, everything in one piece, and with pitchers we filled the bombs. And when that cooled, in another area, they drilled the holes in the bombs to put what ignites the bombs, I don't know what you call it. And on the other section, they put them all together, 15 bombs in one big shell. And then the fuselage went on. And the worst thing was that we know that the bombs we're making, they're killing our own people. And the living conditions there were little barracks, 4 women in one room. When it was cold, it was winter time, we had coal to heat the room. And it got real bitter cold, we had blankets. And the march to the factory, it wasn't too bad, it was about 15-20 minutes walk where we lived. And once a day they took us out from the factory and they gave us food, some kind of a soup. You didn't supposed to look up to see who serves you or ask for more. When not, you got it over your head. And once in a while the SS woman wanted to have a cake, so they pulled out one inmate and beat him up or tell another inmate to beat her. And if you didn't beat her hard enough, then you got it over your head too. But that was the worst things that happened a few times. And when it came around the holidays, Christmas, we had to put up a show for him. What we couldn't, Friday night or Saturday, it was nothing but 7 days a week work.
So your orders were given by these older
No, they didn't. They didn't. The factory was run by SS. Who was in the factory? They gave out the foremen and all that. They were SS, and they really watched what's going on. Shouldn't be any sabotage or anything. They were with us. They were working from Ukraine. Women and men who came in on their own, and they got paid. And there were Italian prisoners, war prisoners, and some Mongols who did very hard work. They were digging ditches and clearing paths, for the railroad to come in, or building over that they wouldn't be wrecked. They from above and fly, when the planes should go, they shouldn't see the trains go there.
Okay, we'll stop here.
Okay.
And we'll start up with the gentleman who saved you and your friends and put you into the special selection. What was his name?
His family name was Ziegler. He was a neighbor of ours, also farmers.
Okay, and the camp that you went to, that you were sent to, where the ammunition factory, the name was?
Wesemünde.
And where, in what city was that?
It was close to 20 kilometers from Bremen and between Lübeck.
Okay, and you were telling me about how it was underground.
Underground factories. It was a Munawerke.
Okay.
It belonged probably to AG Farben Industries.
What did you hear? What were you learning from did you get any outside news, information while you were working?
Nothing. Nothing. We didn't heard anything. We couldn't talk. We couldn't talk to the prisoners. We couldn't talk to the people who came from Ukraine. Probably they had information, but we couldn't, especially the one who came in from Ukraine. They had information, but we couldn't talk to anybody. It was just between us.
You spoke Hungarian, but did you speak any German?
I spoke a dialect of German. It is, when you would talk from Germany with a real German accent, they could hardly understand it. It was worse than for somebody from the South. Like for the colored people. They speak here, I can understand them. And I have one worker in my place from the South. I have to ask him 2-3 times, what do you say? I don't understand what he talks. And that was the same thing.
You were working with a group of girls that you knew?
Yeah.
Have you stayed in contact with any of them?
Afterwards, by the liberation, we were somehow separated. We were 5 girls. We were together. And the other ones were liberated, that we were left.
Well, we'll start with that. After, what happened?
When we left, there were constant bombing in Bremen, and we could see the red skies. And we know that it's getting close. From that we understood that it's getting closer and closer. And then one day they put up all in the wagons, and they didn't tell us where we're going. And we were on the railroad tracks, back and forth, quite by 3-4 days, maybe more.
How many of you?
and 400 of us. And one day, it was planes flying over us, and one bomb hit one of the wagons. And there were about 40, 50 girls. There were no survivors. And after that, when we looked around, there were no SS, and there was no, from the Luftwaffe, they just walked away from us. And we started to walk, and some of the girls were picked up by soldiers, English. That part was liberated by English soldiers. And we were picked up by, and taken 5 of us, that took us to a German family, that they should feed us and give us clothes. We were there not long, a few days, maybe a week or so. And they came for us and they took us into Neustadt. That was a GP camp.
So you were on the train. Do you remember the day that...
It was the day before liberation. It must have to be the 3rd or the 4th.
Of May?
May, 4th or 5th of May.
1945.
1945.
Okay, so you were taken into the town of...
Neustadt. That was on the Ostsee, the North Sea. And we were taken into a barrack, and there were some Polish guys there, all Jewish. And they helped us, they gave us food, and the soldiers came back and they brought us clothes. And not much after that, I got sick. And I don't even remember who took me to the hospital. I had typhoid fever. And I was in the hospital till December. And in between that time, I was completely separated from everybody at the hospital, away from an end of the hall in a room. And when they came to my door, the nurses or the doctor, they take the shoes off, because when somebody just knocked, I had a terrible headache. I screamed. And around the holiday time, before Rosh Hashanah, a young man came to the door. I recognized him for one of the guys who was in the barrack when the English soldiers brought us in. And he said that he heard that I'm doing fine. He's going to Poland. He heard he has some brothers there. And when he come back, he gonna look me up again. And I was still in the hospital. And then not long after, I don't know how long, I can't remember the days or weeks, he came back with his younger brother. He was on the way to Poland, and he heard that his youngest brother is looking for him. So he came back and he found him. His younger brother came into Neustadt and they find each other. And when I was feeling better already, I had permission to go out from the hospital a few hours a day, and we spent time together. And then he decided again to go to Poland to help his brothers to come back. And that young man, Janek, he was a survivor from a boat from 7,000 inmates. Or the ship was bombed the 3rd or the 4th, a day before liberation, a couple of days before liberation. He and 2 other guys survived 15 hours in the icy waters and came to shore. And well, after that, we heard the story, but and to see the 2 brothers together, it just was unbelievable. And in the meantime, I got in touch with my sisters through the Red Cross, that they are survived and they are at home in Hungary. And when he came back the second time, he lost everything. He went back the second time to go for his brothers. He was robbed, they took everything away from him. So he came back and he tried to make some money at the black market, whatever, and he finally decided to go. And his younger brother said he's going too. I said, you know what, when you both are leaving, I am going with the Red Cross home to Hungary. And on the way back, when you come from Poland, come through Hungary, and then we all go back together to Germany and to Israel. I said, no. Janek decided Simon, the youngest brother, should stay with me, and I should leave the hospital. It was close to around 4 weeks before Hanukkah time. So Simon was liberated in Bavaria, on the Austrian border. So we went by cattle wagon, by horse and buggy, walking. We made it back where Simon was liberated, in a small town. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting to hear from them. It took 4 weeks. Simon decided to go back to Neustadt, maybe hear something. And he got into Frankfurt and he heard the news that was a pogrom and they were killed. And when he got back, we were living across from the railroad station, and every night I was looking at waiting when the train is coming, maybe he gonna be on it. And the way he came down, stepped down from the train, I ran downstairs and asked the question, when did it happen? And then I had the blame that it's my fault that he is not together with his brothers. And what he gonna do now? And I said, well, I'm going back to Hungary, and you can come with me. What I gonna find there, we gonna share. He said, no, it's my fault, and I cannot go. He's not going to a place. I have to stay with him. It's my fault that he is alive. And in the same year, we got married in 1946, in May. And I decided to want to go home, to see my sisters, see what's left there, what's going on. And I was pregnant already. I was 2 months pregnant. And I went home with the Red Cross. And one of Simon's friends came with me, that I shouldn't be by myself. He wouldn't go. We got into Budapest. I had the information from my sisters that apartment key, we had a condo for business in Budapest. The key is by my uncle, by my mother's only brother who have survived. And I know where his business was. He opened up his business and he was standing in front of the store. And when he saw me coming, he said, if you don't have any money to buy yourself a scarf, because you're an Orthodox woman, I'm gonna give you money for that. I was the only survivor who came back from the whole family. And that was the welcome. Instead of to tell me, I said, come on honey, go in, come in, pick yourself some fabrics, I give you a dressmaker, make yourself a coat. That was the welcome. So when I went home to Bonyhard to see my sisters, like I mentioned that before, I couldn't walk through my parents' house. And I told them I'll be on the same train, first train gonna take me back, I'll be back in Germany. It took me 4 weeks to get some papers, washed out passports. And I signed up with a group of artists who entertained the Russian soldiers in Vienna, and in Budapest. So we got washed out passports with our pictures put on. We got into Vienna, it was fine. I tried from Vienna to go over to Salzburg. In Linz was another border. They sent us back. That was a Russian border in Austria. It took me 3 months to get back to Germany. And the welcome I had at home, I wish I wouldn't go home. It was for my sisters. They were just, maybe I changed the 9 months in concentration camp. But they didn't went through all that. They didn't see the circumstances, how my father left the house. They didn't see that we had to come, my father had to come back and my uncle to our home and dig out some of the jewelry, and they beat them up. It's not enough. It's not enough. There was a list put out that the most jewelry is hidden by the Polacks and by my uncle Gladstein. How the ear was there enough for my uncle's head. And they didn't went through the ghetto. They didn't went through Auschwitz. They're my sisters. And a very lucky one who had 3 sisters survived after all that hell. They came down to visit in 1949. I got a telephone call from Vienna. My youngest sister Sabina escaped from Hungary. So Simon had connection with the Austrian border police. He was bringing a cigarette in from Austria for the black market. That's the way we made a living. And he went to Vienna and brought my sister over as his wife to Salzburg. And then a fisherman's boat brought my sister over to us on a Saturday night. We made her papers that she was liberated together with where Simon was liberated. They put in papers that she took food cards all these years. And one day a friend of mine came and said, Bobbie, come on, let's go up with me to Munich. I said, you know what, I need some meat anyway. It's the only place where you can buy kosher meat. I went with her, so she went up to the joint committee to see what her papers are doing. I said, come on, fill out some papers to America. It doesn't cost you anything. And it took 6 weeks. We got our papers to leave. And when my sister came, she brought some papers, an affidavit to go to Australia, but had to renew it, it expired. And she also registered to come to the United States. But when we left, it was already early fall. We find her a place to stay. We paid for the woman, for food, for coal, and for rent for her. And I had a sewing machine, what I planned to take with me. We planned to go to Israel. So I left a sewing machine for her because she knew how to use it. And she found a job by the Ort. She was teaching to sew. And when we got in, 6 weeks later we left, we got into St. Louis. It doesn't take long. We got a letter from her that she got her papers to Australia and she got her papers to the United States, what she should do. He doesn't want to marry the young man who helped her to escape from Hungary, who she was engaged to. Will I be able to find somebody else? I wrote to her, I said, you have to take your own choice. I cannot help you. I cannot give you any answer on that. So she decided Australia. And she got married there very shortly. And our life...
What boat did you come over on in 1949? Do you remember the name of the boat?
That became the United States General Hershey. It's a military boat.
And where did you land?
Boston.
Boston?
It was Simhastora. Then we got into St. Louis. They took us straight from the boat to the train station, and we got in here.
Did you have a sponsor? Did someone sponsor
you?
The
UNRWA, the Jewish Family and Children's Service, sponsored us. And while my sister was in the 6 weeks she was with me, she dressed me up to head to toe. She made me a beautiful suit, she made me some slacks, some made me a coat. I had a Burberry coat, and when we came down the railroad station, at that time was Mrs. Romalis, was the head of the Jewish Family and Children's Service. She said, my God, who dressed you up like that already? You just got in. I said, that's my clothes from over there. It's my own clothes. She said, I don't believe it that over there they wear clothes like that. I said, yes, they do. And our first trip here was to the Jewish hospital. My daughter fell on the boat and cracked her head open. And they would put us, it was one thing what I never can pay back for the Jewish Family Service, for the Federation, for the welcome we got. They gave us food, they gave us money, they gave us housing. That time was the best. When I think back on it, the mice was running over my headboard while I was sitting there. But everything was sweet. We were safe and a future. And it was day by day. We find a better, they gave us a better apartment. And in June, I was pregnant with my second child. And we find an apartment on Eastern Avenue. That's Martin Luther King now. And the woman who owned the apartment wanted $300 to give me the key. I had $300 in my pocket, what we brought with us from Germany. So we gave them the $300 to get the key. Then she wanted another $300 for the furniture, what was there. If I would wanted to move the couch, I couldn't move it. It would fall apart. So I went up to the Jewish Family Service that the lady wants, we would like to rent an apartment. And she wants $300 for the furniture, and it's $50 a month rent. So the social worker said, it's too much money. You cannot afford $51 rent a month. I said, I don't ask you for a rent money. I am taking in 3 single guys who are gonna live with me, and they're gonna pay their rent. I'm gonna live with them. So they gave me the $300. They gave me 2 beds. In the dining room we put up a bed. In the living room we put up a bed. I had a hallway, a little bedroom. I put 1 guy there. There was a little room next to the kitchen, big as a matchbox. That was my daughter's room. And Simon and Bobbie were sleeping on the sun porch. There were 2 iron beds, all glazed with glass around it. Another porch underneath, no insulation or anything. And my friends asked me, how can you sleep out there? It is so cold. I said, I like to sleep in a cold room. We lived there 3 years. And in between time, I spoke already a little bit English. And find an ad in the paper, a dressmaker was looking for somebody to finish work. So I rented a sewing machine for $4 a month. She brought me the clothes, what she fitted. I finished it. Simon delivered it back to her. Her shop was down South County by Famous and Bar. Jeannie's dressmaker. So I had an income, $12 a month from my boarders. They paid me, beside that, they paid me for food. I had a little income from sewing. Simon had a little job. He started to work for a butcher to deliver. He made $37 a month. I said thank you for the Jewish Family Service when they gave me the $300 for the payment for the furniture. And while I was pregnant, they came from the St. Louis Needs Society. They came up to me with a package of baby clothes. And I said, thank you very much. I am superstitious. I know when my baby comes, I don't gonna bring her home naked. And when Rosie was born, believe me, I didn't brought her home naked. Those people were there, those ladies were there with their clothes and more. And in 1952, we moved out in another house, another apartment, and we bought our first business. We saved up $2,500. And we bought in partnership the most modern butcher shop in St. Louis, from Sokolik on northern southern Del Mar. And after that, God was with us. Anything what my father gave our charity, everything came back in our way. And we were in partnership 12 years. Then we went on our own. Then we moved out to Creve Coeur. We were there 21 years. And now with God's help, we are in our own building for my children. I have 3 wonderful children. Edith, she's the oldest. She has 3 children. Kevin, 27, she's a lawyer in Miami. Rachel, she's 24, married, has a little granddaughter, I have a little great-granddaughter. And Jessica. Then Rosemary got married. Her husband is Bertram Cooper. She has 2 beautiful children, Lori and Michael. And my only son, Lenny. 3 beautiful kids. Daniel. I should be laughing, not crying. Danielle, Jared, and Jacob. And these 5 little children is my life. They are all live in town. They come Shabbos to Grandma's house. Friday night to Grandma's house.
Okay.
And what else should I say?
Well, we're going to stop here, and we'll
Okay.
pick up in a minute.
Back with the time a little bit. When Simon came back that his brothers are killed, the killing took place the first night of Hanukkah, where Yannick got into town. Boleslavice. It was the same night when his father got killed 20 years to the date in the same town. So when Hanukkah comes around, it's not a holiday by us. It's very sad. And I wish that Simon would give a testimony, but I'm afraid he don't be able to do it. I would try to talk him into it. It is very, very important, I think. And just Rosemary, my daughter, told me just this week that her little girl from social studies picked a subject, a concentration camp. And she would like to ask Grandpa to talk to her about it. And that little girl is afraid because she witnessed a few times what happens when we were talking about his brothers. But I told Simon it's very important, and when that little girl comes up to you, to tell him, talk to her, and not just to her, but to all of them, what you went through. It's while he was in concentration camp, walking in Buna, for instance, one of the brothers walking into camp, and he was walking out, and they recognized each other, and the older brother threw a bread to him. And it happened another occasion that Yannick was walking, and he threw up a piece of clothing to him, but that's all what he could give him. And when it comes to talk about these things, and it comes that you survived and you touched your brother, you lived with him for weeks, and know that two other brothers are living and waiting, and that happens.
Did you know who or
I
how
just know Yannick.
Killed? Well, the brothers in
I
Poland.
didn't know the ones in Poland. I just know Yannick. And I suppose when they would came back from Poland and go to Israel, we be supposed to get married. And when all that happened, that Simon blamed me that I'm the fault that he is alive. People was telling me, after a brother. And at that time it wouldn't matter who.
You had to go on.
But it worked out. We raised a beautiful family. And then I have a letter what my little granddaughter wrote once in school and gave it to me, that how happy she is that we made a new home for us and for the family in the United States.
When you first got here to St. Louis,
What?
when you first came to St. Louis,
Yeah.
What was it like? Did people ask questions? Did you talk about your experience?
We tried to meet people. I couldn't find anybody here from the camps I was in. Simon met some people here. Some who met in Auschwitz, some who met in a different camp. And we had a double wedding ceremony in Germany, and we met those people. They moved to Chicago, and we met with them, and we were very close. We visited them for Thanksgiving. They came here, we went there, and we came up a bar mitzvah or something. And they live now in Miami.
Do you observe Judaism in the same way as you were raised?
No.
What is different?
What is different? I used to say laughingly to my father, my older sister got married, she had to put on a wig, my second sister had to put up a wig. And I said, you listen to me, when I gonna get married, the wig's gonna be out of style. You know, I keep a kosher house, I don't eat out, but I don't keep the Sabbath as I should. And sometimes I do something, it just gives me a sting that I shouldn't do that after so many years. And when my sisters came to the United States, they came down to visit me. One of my brother-in-law said, how could you go away so far from everything? And I just looked at them. I said, there was no reason. It is just, that's how it happened. And maybe if you would go through, if you would see things that I saw, maybe you wouldn't believe even that much how much I do. But
what did it have, the effect have on you in raising your children?
they ask me questions. One of them, Lori, she's a very bright little girl. She asked me questions about the school days, free time, pastime. The others, I don't know, they're not so talkative. But that little girl, she wants to know everything. She asked me a year ago to come to her class to talk about my experiences under Hitler and concentration camp. And it brought it up that there is a little girl in her class whose grandma was in Schindler's List. They live in town. So I came to school and asked the kids, I said, did you heard anything about the Holocaust? You know what it was? So most of them said yes, answers and questions. And when it was over, next day, I got 35 letters from the kids thanking me, and please, would you come any other time? Could we call you on the telephone? Could you tell some things that my mom would like to know?
If you had...
I was never sent out to talk to groups, whatever. I was working all the time, and maybe I'm not the type to do it.
Have you gone back to visit?
To Hungary?
Yes.
I was there the first time, like I mentioned earlier, in 1946. Then 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, I took my daughter, Edith, Rosemary, and my new daughter-in-law back to Hungary. We could join the group, Jewish Heritage Tour, but went to Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Budapest. And we visited the cemeteries, I went to my mother's grave after so many years away. And there was a little memorial thing put up. It's an Orthodox cemetery, in the Orthodox community from Budapest sponsors it, and it's kept up to date. And my brother-in-law from Australia, now from Israel, he visits every year and he paints over the names on the gravestones, my grandparents, my mother, some other relatives' names. And when we went to Theresienstadt and we went into Vienna all over, so my oldest daughter is supposed to make for social studies such a family tree. And that time there was nobody to put on. And when we came through all these places, she said, now I see where the missing leaves are. And it was a great experience. We went through Theresienstadt, we went through the Jewish cemetery in Prague, the museum. We went to, in Vienna, the Jewish places to see. And I can't forget it.
I'm sorry.
Please?
What message do you have for the world? Is there something that you can look back and you'd like to say?
Don't be afraid. It never happened again. It's never gonna happen again. And believe in God, believe in yourself.
Do you still have nightmares from it?
I don't. I dream sometimes, you know, I see my father, but my husband has dreams, fights, screams at night. When the kids were little, we lived on Minerva and Goodfellow. It was on the corner of a bus stop. When the bus stopped and the wheels squeaked, he jumped out of bed screaming, and with his nails was blood running. And when a child cried up at night, the same thing. Even up today. He wakes up, he dreams, he fights, his fist goes. They're hunting him, they're running after him, dogs. Day and day and day, almost somebody wants him. And time doesn't heal. In that case, doesn't. And after so many years that everybody's gone, when it comes to a holiday, a simcha, I can talk to the pictures. That's all. I am lucky I have pictures from my mother and father. Simon has pictures from her two brothers. I have pictures from my only brother.
Is there
who died without knowing what life means. He didn't have a taste of life.
Is there something you'd like to tell your grandchildren, that you would like to say to them?
Stay a Jew. Don't forget where you come from.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you. Okay, can you tell us about this photograph?
I'm lucky I have those pictures. If my sisters had it, or the people who wanted to save us, save those pictures. It's my dad, Jude Polak, and my mother, who died at childbirth, Regina Polak. And when it's something hurts or something, I feel the cup overflows. I talk to the pictures.
Okay, and who is this a picture of?
That's my brother, Polak Mor, known by his Hebrew name, Moshe Chaim. That is the bar mitzvah picture.
What year would this have been taken?
He was born in 1917.
1930?
Yeah. The same way as through my sister, or the people who saved that, who we gave us a bunch of pictures to hold. And that picture was taken in our backyard. It looked like a park.
And this
On
picture?
that picture, he's about 20 years old.
And where was it taken?
In a yeshiva where he was studying.
He was studying
to be a rabbi, and he got his Taurus Arua, and he would be a rabbi.
And who is this a picture of?
That picture is Simon's, one of oldest brother, who was liberated in Poland early spring and went back home to Bolesławiec, and they find their family home in place. Other two brothers survived. They all went back and they lived there till it came in 1945, the first night of Hanukkah. They were gone down.
And what was his name?
Shoah.
How do you spell that?
Shaya. Shoah.
And who is this picture of?
That is Janek, who I met, who saved my life in Germany. He survived from 7,000 inmates on a boat. It was bombed, and he and two other guys survived 15 hours in the icy waters. He was liberated in Germany, in Neustadt, where later on he found his brother Simon, went back to Poland 4 weeks before Hanukkah in 1945, and the night he arrived, he got gunned down by the AK, it's Anderson's army. There were 9 people in the house.
And how did you obtain this picture?
It came back to us, somebody who went back a day after to identify the bodies. He took out pictures from his pocket and brought the pictures back to us.
Who is this a picture of?
That's a picture, is a young couple, Simon and Bobbie, about a year after we got married in 1947, 1948, something like that.
And where was it taken?
In Germany.
And who is this a picture of?
That is Jacob is the little one, Kevin holding her, is Rachel, then is Danielle, Jessica, Jared, Lori, and Michael.
And these are your grandchildren?
These are my grandchildren.
And when was this picture taken?
We're gonna be in April, gonna be 2 years, Passover.
So it was taken in 1996.
6.
Would you like to introduce us to who you have sitting with you?
Left to me is Michael Cooper, is Rosemary's little boy. Jacob is Lenny's youngest son, Jacob Kohn. Jared Kohn is Lenny's son. Danielle Kohn is Lenny's oldest daughter and only daughter. And Lori Cooper is Rosemary's daughter. And the others from the picture, we had 8, 3 of them in Miami. It's a shame they cannot be here.
Okay. Do you know what happened to your grandparents? Have you heard the stories?
Yeah, some of them, yes. All the time.
Do you have any questions for Grandma?
What?
Yeah.
She's the best grandma in the whole wide world.
Oh.
Oh, that's good. What?
Lori was mentioning that you have to write something for social studies, and you chose the Holocaust.
Well, we're gonna study World War II like in the spring. So I want to do Auschwitz since I could get a lot of information from you.
And Grandpa?
Yeah.
Grandma,
Yeah.
how old were you when you started to be in the Holocaust?
In the Holocaust, I was about 21, 22.
Grandma,
Mm-hmm.
were you good when you were in preschool? Did you listen to the teachers?
I had a good teacher.
Did you listen to her?
Yes, I did. I was a very good student. I have to say it.
Anything else you'd like to know, Danielle?
See a little
Anything you would just like to say about what happened?
Well, I thought it was very sad that Hitler did all that to the Jewish people. And I love you, Grandma.
Everyone knows about Adam and Eve, that story.
I love all of
They
you.
do.
They do, because the snake, they want Adam and Eve to eat from the Garden of Eve because it was bad fruit. And God told them not to eat from that garden.
And what else do you want to tell Grandma?
I love you.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael?
How long did the Holocaust go on for?
Grandpa was in 5 years. I was in 9 months.
And so you were about,
But
so
it
you were
was
about
when it
33?
ended in 1945 in May.
And you were about,
May the 5th, 1945. The war was over and everybody was liberated who survived.
so were you like 32?
Mhm.
Love you.
Anything, Laura, you'd like to say to your grandma?
I love you.
I love you all.
Something you'd like to say to them? Bobbie?
That's my pleasure. The Saturday when it comes, the kids come for lunch. And I just hope that they stay on the right way and they never forget where they're coming from. And they're gonna stay Jew in heart and Jew in life.
Thank you.
The people who are poor, I want them, people to give tzedakah money to them because they're real poor.
I think that's very nice. Thank you very